20 Minute Tim's flagship podcast, episode 321. I'm your host, Jamie, and I'm joined after a massive weekend of domestic football by Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
Hello.
Melly points to the 7 behind him. Stephen, 7 points clear. It's all coming up roses at Celtic Park. It was a wonderful match of football. It's all a bit stinky over Ibrox way, but we're going to start off talking about Glasgow Celtic. I said last week, on one of our various podcasts, might have even been the flagship, that what I want to do is get a firm grip now on the domestic stuff heading into the break for what will be probably the world's most dismal World Cup. So I want to get a good grip on the domestic stuff, and it couldn't have went any better.
No, and it was the Breakfast of Champions. I joined you on that particular podcast during the week there to catch up on all the news that happens in between flagship recordings on patreon.com/20minutetims.
Stealing your job.
What a flawless sentence that was.
You are a natural.
Yeah, what a weekend it was. It only became more and more important that Celtic got that absolutely extraordinary victory at the end the longer the weekend went on, particularly around sort of lunchtime on Sunday. It started to feel like a massive result there. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The game wasn't great. I didn't enjoy the game at all, but it was all worth it for the last 3 or 4 minutes, which were absolutely sensational.
It's a strange game. Celtic got themselves ahead, and then you could sort of sense that it was swaying in the second half. Not that Dundee United were playing brilliant or anything, but just had a couple of wee chances. They'd one cleared off the line, then they hit the post. It's like, come on, Celtic, get this third goal. Then Dundee United equalised, but in the past you'd maybe go, oh, well, that's it. Or maybe this time last season it would have been, well, that's our 2 points dropped. But with the way this team is, the way they play now, we've got the players to bring on as well. And we kept going to the end and got the goals. It was like, they equalised with a couple of minutes to go, but it wasn't as if it was panic stations for a lot of people, because you just believe in this team.
Literally got out of his seat and shouted that at the players aggressively. Come on, Celtic, get this third goal.
Score! Bloody score! Do you think it was a lacklustre performance? It was quite muted, it was quite dull, there was a lot of changes. Do you think we spoke about these changes before? Obviously it didn't really work out at St Mirren. A lot of changes this time around. I think it was 7 changes in the lineup for the game against Dundee United, and it just failed to get a spark going a wee bit, didn't it?
Yeah, but if you're asking me whether putting Carter Vickers, Jota and Haksabanovic just means you don't get a spark, then I'm not really sure on that. I just think it was one of those games, a sort of post-European game where Celtic didn't quite click into gear. We've all been looking forward to seeing Jota and Haksabanovic. Carter Vickers come back is obviously a bonus, but just a weird one that just sort of petered out towards the end of the first half and the end of the second half as well. And look, Celtic were sort of hanging on for a wee bit, then let the equaliser, but sparked into life again.
I felt it was just a little bit flat. I didn't think it was absolutely terrible. You weren't looking at it thinking it was just a series of calamitous performances across the pitch. There was nothing like that at all. I just felt it was a little bit muted and dull, as you've already said, Jamie. I remember thinking that we record right after the game, yards from the stadium for our At The Match podcast. You've already had the plug, so go and follow that previous link from a few minutes ago.
Or you can get that on Apple, by the way. Just in case you don't know, on Apple now they do a paid subscription thing, and you just basically see in your Apple feed you get match reactions for every Celtic match, and just to subscribe you just double click that Apple Pay button, and then £2.49 a month. Every single week or every single Celtic game you get a match reaction.
Just helps us out, helps us keep going, pays for all this stuff. You'll feel good you did it, we'll feel good you did it, everybody will feel good you did it. Just go in there and a couple of clicks and everyone's happy. But yeah, we do that immediately after the game, and already my mind was starting to drift to what on earth I was going to say about the game to react in any way. And I remember looking up at the clock and thinking, there's still 25 minutes of this game to go, this godforsaken game, because at that point it felt reasonably comfortable. It was 2-1, and I thought, right, this is just going to be one of those slightly dull games where it just sort of peters out. We've got the victory, we move on to the next one. Then it all kind of went a bit awry towards the end, but it was just a very, very kind of flat performance. And the stadium felt a little bit quiet as well. The atmosphere wasn't bad. It just felt a little bit quiet. It was probably punctured a little bit by the amount of VAR use in the first half. The first half went on about 5 minutes injury time in the first half. So maybe everybody was just feeling the tedium of that a little bit in the second half. But yeah, the ending was well worth sitting through the previous 80 minutes of nonsense.
There's a couple of guys who definitely enjoyed entering that Celtic game, and we'll bring them up in a wee minute. But we might as well talk about VAR again. Third week of having VAR, third week of having VAR discussion on the podcast about a weird decision. Bernabé's handball. I've got to say, when I first saw it, I couldn't figure out whether it was a goal or whether it was definitely a handball or not. Then when I've started seeing replays online, I thought, is he being a bit cute here? Has he got an idea that the ball's past him, so he's kind of thrown an arm out just to see what happens? Because I feel like Bernabé's the sort of character that might have that in him, try to be a little bit cute. Then the more I watched it, I just thought there's no chance that there's no chance that it's a handball. Not you said it, Stephen, as we were rewatching the game and for the podcast, because we do our homework on this podcast. You were like, not you, and I didn't notice this at the time, but you said not a single player appealed for it.
I think that there was one, Melly pointed out, there was a guy kind of off to the side who probably saw his arm coming up who reacted, but Stephen Fletcher, who had the header, didn't react at all. We didn't claim for anything. He just challenged for the ball again and play went on. So the handball that was given and booked, I mean, see if you're going to give the penalty for it and your explanation is that his hand was away from, or his arm was away from his body, all that these tedious rules we've been talking about for weeks now, then fine. But the idea that he gets booked for that, as if it's in any way deliberate, I think is complete nonsense. There's been various debates. I heard Robbie Nielsen talking about handballs and the use of VAR and all that on Sportsound.
I like him.
And he said, or it was put to him that the handball isn't, the rules aren't very helpful and they're still a wee bit subjective. He then said, no, they're not subjective, and then went on to talk about all the reasons that they are indeed subjective. And he said, and you're talking about making yourself big. I mean, how big is big? Yes, Robbie, that's what subjective means. It's the opposite of objective. So we're never going to get any sense in this until we actually get some sort of clarification on what the rules are. Mikey Stewart, for a change, was making the case the other way. I actually agreed with him. We don't often agree, Mikey, but he said that, he pointed out rather, it wasn't his opinion. He just said people don't understand these rules now, because part of the rule is that if your body shape changes as a consequence of you having moved, so if you jump and your arm comes out, that's not a handball. So that surely falls into that category. And then Further to this, I'm getting all my handball stuff out in one go here.
But it's worth doing, because we can't make head nor tail of this handball rule, and it's written down somewhere, and whilst you're talking, I'm off camera Googling. Right? Because obviously it will be... call it. It'll be written down somewhere within IFAB exactly what the handball rules are. And I saw on Twitter someone was saying that Jerry McCulloch at half-time on Celtic TV read out the handball rules so we could get an understanding of this. Right. But I'm almost reticent to do that, because I don't care what it says written down in the tome of IFAB rules. It's silly. It doesn't matter what the actual rule is. As it is just now, it doesn't work.
And then even away from the wording of the rule, we're looking for some sort of... VAR is supposed to bring in some sort of consistency. It's supposed to bring in some sort of reliability in the application of the laws. So what about that Hearts one then? What about that Hearts one from a few weeks ago where the guy just blatantly handballed it? Ange Postecoglou is standing on the side of the pitch with his head in his hands, laughing about it. Why is that a handball in this?
You know why? And it's because what we said before VAR came in, it goes, it doesn't matter how many cameras you've got or how good the cameras are. The referees working here don't have a strong understanding of the game. Now, I can say, the refs should know the rules, right, whilst they're on the pitch. But the guy in the VAR studio surely has, beside his computer that he's watching the VAR, he's got a copy of the rule book. That's the whole purpose. So he can look at him and go, well, actually, what do you think about that, Argyle? Ask Cameron, what do you think about it? And then they can make the decision.
Finlay and Campbell.
Make the decision based on what it says in the book.
It was Nick Walsh as well, who was the VAR ref, who didn't give us the Hearts handball.
That's right.
Oh my God, I mean, where does it begin and end? The biggest VAR catastrophe for me, or the biggest farce, not farce, the biggest VAR farce for me so far has been in the Dundee United game the other week. Tony Watt committed a tackle, wasn't a red card by the on-pitch referee, went to VAR, got red carded for it. Dundee United appealed it and it was rescinded.
Yeah.
How many refs do you need looking
I
at a
know.
challenge, and how many times before the decision's final?
It was never a red card either.
It was never a red card,
No.
aye.
So
It was a shocker.
we're overruling VAR, which is supposed to take the pressure off the referee in the first place. So that happens, and then we're deciding that VAR's wrong now as well.
It doesn't.
Absurd
It
stuff.
makes absolutely no sense to me.
The big thing for me is like VAR's there to get the correct decision. Fine, that's it. But it's meant to be clear and obvious, isn't it? Well, if no player claimed for it, the referee didn't have a Scooby about it. So if it's clear and obvious, then surely the VAR guy goes, that's a penalty.
Yeah.
He doesn't go 5 minutes. What was it? It was about 4 or 5 minutes before we get the decision.
Yeah.
So he watched it again and again, couldn't get a decision. The referee then has to go over and watch it and takes plenty of time. That's not clear and obvious.
No.
So what's the point here? Is it just, this is why we were so worried about it, because it wasn't going to be, this is going to help our refs. This is the exact thing they need. They don't need this because they can't even make the decision without seeing a replay of it. So what difference is a replay going to make? It's just going to confuse them even more.
There was another VAR call with a Craig Sibbald challenge. Was it Craig Sibbald challenge? On
a high boot.
High boot on
Serious
Yakimakis.
foul play was the thing on the screen,
Was that
wasn't it? A potential serious foul play, yeah.
I didn't think there was much in that either.
Nah, he kind of led with a high boot and then sort of pulled out. He kind of pulled out. I think he eventually sort of brushed Yakimakis with his knee. Eventually didn't stud him.
Melly's sniggering off camera. Sorry, carry on, Stephen.
Yeah, he sort of withdrew and plunged his knee into his. But I don't think it was. I don't think it was a straight red. No, I didn't have any problem with that, to be honest. It looked like a serious tackle because anyone who in any way challenges Yakimakis, it does look like a serious
Well, that's
challenge.
what Melly said. Melly, you called Yakimakis a diving bastard, didn't you?
Yeah, he does.
He does. I mean, it's kind of good to have one of those in our team for a
Oh
change.
yeah, definitely.
And I've noticed how no one's really been so quick to pull him up. Kyogo got it. Remember, that Kyogo was a cheat patter that was bubbling, didn't bubble under, but bubbled over. No one's yet to call Yakimakis a cheat, but he does like a wee dive, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And, that one, it wasn't a red card at all. I don't think. At least they checked it, but he loves a wee dive. But just do it a bit better, mate.
What
Do it
about
a bit better.
Aaron Moyes' dive against Real Madrid? Was that? Oh, goodness me. Using all his experience there, that was one of the worst dives I've ever seen in my life.
That was reminiscent of, do you know who else is a terrible diver? Yeri Yarashik. He was awful at diving. His main role eventually became the team diving so Naka could hit free kicks.
Famously against Man United, of course. So cheers, Yeri.
That was him. Craig Sibbald, won't send him to the Varber. What in the world is that boy got in his dome?
Endless stream of VAR puns, and absolutely tremendous.
It never ends. Carter Vickers was back, Melly.
Yeah, it was good to see him back. Missed him during the week, obviously. Starfelt had to come in, but he just brings that calmness to the defence. And Dundee United got it back into the game for a penalty, but up until the end, they weren't really creating anything. It was just a nothing. They got the penalty out of, but good to see the big man back. And missed the odd game here or there, and when he's out, you do really miss him. And hopefully now get these 2 games before the World Cup with him, Jens and Starfelt in contention for playing it. We're starting to look strong with Jota, Haksabanovic, everybody back bar Cal McGregor now. The
World Cup's a bit of a pain in the arse, isn't it, really? Because normally at this period you want to start increasing that lead, and it looks as though Rangers are got a bit of trouble. Things aren't really going so well down Ibrox way. We're starting to get good players back. I just feel like this World Cup's coming at the wrong time for us a wee bit.
It's potentially saving GVB's job here. Is that what we're saying?
That's good for us.
I think they're already starting to feel like, don't like talking about it, but our disastrous season in it is starting to feel a bit like that. I can foresee them having to make numerous statements backing the manager and all that. No, it's business
already one today.
Yep, that's it. Business as usual, I believe they called it. So the thing is, I don't want to dedicate too much time to talking about them, but they did lose this weekend, so we're entitled to it. But
that's what competition's all about.
Exactly.
Keep it friendly.
But I think they're already starting to fall victim to that weird thing we've got in Scotland. It's a weird thing, fixation we've got in this country with not sacking managers. We act like it's sort of in some way undignified, or we're all above it.
Oh, come on, they are dignified.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I've seen this argument from yourself in the Discord and all that, which is the best Celtic community online, our TMT Discord. I think it's only Rangers that do that, though, because I think Celtic, They've sacked quite a lot of managers recently. They
Look
don't
at
come
the
out.
Lennon thing, though. Goodness.
Well,
God,
that was
3 months of abject misery.
That was a different story, admittedly, because Lennon had, for some reason, a lot of cachet with the Celtic board. But I mean, Tony Mowbray unceremoniously pumped out, and Ronnie Dyla was sacked. But you have touched on something. This is going to become an albatross around their neck, because Rangers fans, or Rangers as a club, I don't really know how the fans feel about it, but they've always historically said, we don't sack managers, but obviously they have. I mean, they've sacked Paul Le Guen, they sacked Alex McLeish, Warburton. Yeah, Stuart McCall, I'm sure, was sacked as well. Unless these guys are all still employed by Rangers. Alan McCoist, he was on garden leave. So, but this could become an albatross around their neck. We don't sack managers. Could Giovanni become the first Rangers manager to actually get sacked? And would that be good or bad for our season?
Bad. Well, I don't know. The thing is, I can't see any. Van Bronckhorst was the easy get, right? He was an out-of-work manager with a bit of a reputation, a guy who is huge standing at the club, a good player for
signed
them.
Signed his texts off with We Are The People.
Exactly. He gets the club, signed his texts off with We Are The People.
That's their equivalent of Knows the City.
Yeah. So he was the easy get. Now I'm looking around thinking there aren't any obvious candidates here, because I have treated myself to some Rangers-based media, right, over the last couple of days since they lost. And some tweets and posts on forums are passed around in our circles, and they can't think of a single thing past get some right good white British Protestants in. It's Kevin Thompson.
Protestant work ethic.
Yeah, what was that? That was a comment on a podcast, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
You're lifting that from a Rangers podcast, incidentally.
Yeah, that was a Rangers podcast where famous tweeter, I won't even give the name actually, said that what they were missing was a good Protestant work ethic. The day after, they were gubbed by Liverpool, and all of the goals were scored by a Muslim and a Brazilian guy, which is the most Catholic country on earth. So I don't know, they would have needed Reverend Paisley to be at the centre half to proddy that up against that tidal wave.
They've really backed themselves into a corner, I think, with a lot of their signings and stuff. And I think when you see the likes of Alan McGregor in goal, it looks to me like a mistake, and it does look a wee bit. From the outside, it looks like, yes, it is very reminiscent of Celtic's sort of 10 in a row pursuit, holding on to players too long, not bringing in the right players, and it's fantastic to watch. It's really, really sensational.
Well, that's exactly what I meant by the refusal to sack a manager thing, because that's what we went through. We were basically made to feel guilty for wanting rid of a manager. The board kept coming out and telling us it was out of order. We were, entitled and all that kind of stuff. And we don't do that. It's better to support and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to go through all these various stages of denial and grief, I reckon.
There is one man who might fancy the job, David Martindale. I don't know. He was on open all mics on BBC Scotland.
Lovely stuff.
It was absolutely tremendous. Listen to him, and I think it was Shelley Caird discussing
it was Leanne Crichton.
Was it Leanne Crichton? Was it discussing the dying embers of what they thought was the dying embers of the Celtic game? David Martindale giving it. I just think this is another football manager, by the way, right? So Celtic just look out of ideas. I think, to be fair to Leanne Crichton, she says I think Celtic might still be able to create something. He was like, absolutely not. No. He was so sure, Stephen. He was so sure that Celtic couldn't get into this melee. Did you hear him? Did you hear about this?
I went between that and another one we might talk about as well. It was great listening because you get the full version of it, from Dundee United scoring to Celtic scoring, and he's against it like, David, we pumped your team last week. We ripped you apart on your own turf. But it was great to listen to the pain, because he's just right at the end, he's like, who's even marking Kyogo? Just if it can't hold in that frustration.
See, to be honest, the Dundee United players were the same, because see, if you watch Kyogo's goal, I think it's number 15. I'm not sure who the Dundee United player is as I glance down here quickly. No, can't figure it out. He sees Kyogo at the end of the box. He's doing this two-handed point, right? Like he's Kyogo, and then as Kyogo runs into the box, he's just following him with his hands, but not with his legs, and he's just like, he's screaming as Kyogo heads the ball in the back of the net. Meanwhile, this guy's marking absolutely nobody.
Well, at the very end of our At The Match podcast, you could start to hear fireworks going off, because it was the 5th of November and it was Greg Taylor's birthday, so the celebrations were starting across the city.
Happy birthday, Greg.
Yep, you could actually hear the fireworks, but the biggest rocket was yet to come when I was on my way home from the game, and I heard David Martindale on Radio Scotland referring to himself in the third person repeatedly, talking about, if Livingston want David Martindale, then David Martindale's here for them. And I was like, I'm gripping the steering wheel.
Is this him talking himself into trying to talk himself up for the Rangers job?
It could be. Well, I reckon to do that, he would have had to have called himself Mr. Martindale.
Of course, that's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay.
But I know another extraordinary performance by the Scottish media, the lamestream media in this country.
Hugh Keevins, right? Now, listen.
Still going.
Hugh Keevins is on the verge of being a national treasure, right? He is on the verge of being a national treasure. Hugh Keevins was a Twitter troll before Twitter existed.
Yeah.
That's basically what Hugh Keevins' job is. And he has manned that post admirably, has Mr. Keevins. He is like one of these Japanese soldiers in the jungle that still thinks World War II is going on. You're like, Hugh, this is not, we don't need to do this anymore. You can talk honestly about the football. No, the war's still going and I must stick to my post. I'm not leaving my post. And he's, okay, Hugh. So Hugh, he didn't just like say, oh, it's looking bad for Celtic. He wrote a column on it. He basically spoke that, so this is it on a big weekend. Celtic coming back, they really needed to make moves, and this, like, the story of Celtic's Champions League is that they can't take chances, and then today they stop their Celtic scored one. Like,
after it happened to him 2 or 3 weeks ago again.
I know, you're like, Hugh, you don't have to do this.
Is a captain solemnly going down with a ship, even though he's yards from dry land, basically just standing there on the
just giving it. You're like, when are these guys ever going to learn? When are these teams going to learn, Melly? Because Ange came out after the game and he goes, it's not a fluke, it's not just a saying. These players, they don't believe there's any such thing as a lost cause. We don't stop chasing the win. And it's just like, these idiots in this league don't get it. These bums, it's not getting into their head. That's how Celtic play. Ange plays 90 minutes of football and it's no difficult and it's not new. Gordon Strachan's team's got last minute goals, certainly not the way Ange's team just keep attacking to the last minute. He's got it drilled into them. But there's just nothing these teams can do against when Celtic keep going, is there?
No, there's not. There's a bit of everything here because there's no coincidence. Celtic do it a lot of the time. We have the best technical players, the fittest players, and we've got the quality to do it. But it's also, a lot of it now is a mentality thing. Like Celtic, as soon as they let in that goal, Joe Hart grabs the ball and flings it straight to the halfway line. They believe they can score. And then when Celtic start to create small chances, the fear gets into Dundee United because the crowd can sense it and all that.
And the quality we bring off the bench, it murders these guys.
We brought on Maeda, we brought on James Forrest and Abada. I thought it was a bit early for that in the game, but we have good players on the pitch that can score goals. And it's even just the simple things like when we got the corner, I was looking down at O'Reilly and he just stands there, takes a massive deep breath, composes himself and whips that ball in. Players aren't panicking. They're doing the right things, breathing, just getting it in the box. And for Dundee United as well, you've got a corner against Celtic who are not the tallest team. Giakoumakis is off the pitch. You've basically got 2 centre-halves to mark. And Celtic make the runners because they've got the desire, they want to go, they're fitter, they want to get that goal. It was brilliant. And look, the fourth goal was absolute butter, as you'd say. But
I don't think I've used that this season, but it is a good word.
It was amazing, but the feeling at that third goal, because you knew that was the winner, man, it was unbelievable. And you just, because I was going out that night and I was meeting up with some Bears, so I thought, the first thing, you just worry about
Rangers fans.
Yeah. In that split second. But to get that goal just set us off, man, and it was a tremendous feeling. The place went absolutely wild.
A fourth goal made by Dyson Maeda's inability to control a ball, so thank you for that. The bit one, but I think it was O'Reilly who pinged it through. It was a great ball, but Maeda tries to take it down, it just bounces right past his toe and Abada's onto it like a shot. So
what
he played
a
his
finish,
part.
by the way.
It was great.
Scoop.
I did think for a single second we're kind of behind that, sitting in the halfway line, kind of behind Abada. I thought for a second, he's got that stuck under his feet and he's going to end up. I did think that he's going to end up smashing this straight at the keeper. So he pulled that out the bag just at the very last second. Absolutely brilliant.
The boy's a striker, not a winger. Time to face facts.
It does seem to have all the attributes that would be pretty good for that, and none of the attributes that would make him a good winger. That's obviously jokingly harsh, but I take nothing away from that finish. It's absolutely brilliant because it wasn't as pleasing a goal, obviously, right? But we spoke about Jota's goal against Rangers and that his touch, the finish was all he could do, basically. That was the only place he could put it, because it would have been the easiest thing in the world to just smash that straight at the keeper, was the position he was in. But Abada had basically had no choice but to flick that, or rather scoop it over the on-rushing keeper, and he did it absolutely perfectly.
It's never too early to play holiday music, and it's never too early to start thinking about gifts. Whether it's for a friend or the friend in your pants, you can make this season jolly with Manscaped. Do your little drummer boy a favour and use the Lawnmower 4.0 to avoid another silent night in the bedroom. Then add in Manscaped's top-of-the-line shower products that have the people thinking, all I want for Christmas is you. Santa cares about his sack. And so should you. Look nice when you get naughty by going to manscaped.com and use the code TIMS for free shipping and 20% off, Stephen.
That's right, Jamie. Now that you've groomed your candy cane, it's time to make sure you don't smell like a reindeer with the Platinum Package's shower products. All of Manscaped's shower gear is sulfate-free, vegan, and made to have your skin feeling hydrated and smelling fresh. But smelling good doesn't stop at the shower. The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner, can solve stank problems all day long. Once they touch your sack, you'll never go back.
Wonderful. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TIMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code TIMS. Manscaped, get your jingle balls ready for the holidays. I mean, the two winning goals, we can both call them both winning goals, I suppose. The two winning goals were scored by two guys that came off the bench, but the man of the match was won by one of the guys that started, Haksabanovic. I'm so glad we've bought him.
Yeah, I don't think he was brilliant in the game, but scored two goals. The first
Helped
one
by the Dundee United goalkeeper, who was rubbish, man.
The first one was a better finish than we maybe give him credit for at the game, because it's a bit of a tough angle. Second one, decent enough hit, but I'd be expecting your keeper to do better than that. I was just excited to see him and Jota on the pitch at the same time on either flank. It didn't quite fly as well as I thought it would, but I don't think MD was terrible for Celtic. I don't think MD played particularly well either. So it's just one of those games, but I think going forward, those two are just going to be great for us. And Haksabanovic, when he first, I'm not quite used to him like being a Celtic player.
That's hit me as well,
It was always, he's coming on loan. Then it was 5-year deal, and you're like, wait a minute here. It was just announced at the very last second. So yeah, I'm delighted we've got him, because I think he can play anywhere across the three behind the striker, and I just love watching him play, and having Jota back as well for these two games is another bonus.
Hackers and Jota, is that your preferred wing pairing?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's in the same position as basically everyone else who is competing for these positions, in that he might not necessarily be all that natural on the right, but he's going to have to suck up and deal with it, because Jota is the main guy on the left. Until further notice, he's got that position. There will be games where he can come in and probably start off the left, and if Jota could potentially get a rest. He was injured for a little bit there anyway, but until such times as that happens, he's going to need probably get used to either playing on the right or maybe in the slightly more central role that we saw him in recently. Glad he got his goals. It was the one thing he was missing, because I'd felt like up to this point he was creating an awful lot, making himself really useful, winning fouls around the edge of the box that led to goals and all that. But I felt like he hadn't even had really any big chances yet. He hadn't really even missed any chances, so nice to get on the score sheet at home. The first one I did think was harder a chance to take than it looked. Very close range, of course, but it was a slightly tight angle because he was just on the post. But if you watch it back, Jota really choked the cross. He kind of hit it right into the ground, and it was bouncing up again by the time it came to Haksabanovic's foot. So he did well to get that in. The second one was, at the game, it looked like that was the nicer finish, because it went across the keeper into the bottom corner from the opposite side of the box. But the keeper was woeful for that. Yeah. I have to say, really, really poor. It was basically straight at him, and he just kind of pushed it into the bottom corner.
Just a wee simple thing, but it's nice having a good number 7 and number 9 in it.
It's nice. It's nice to have them back. I actually think that Celtic, as all these players are coming back, I mentioned it before, we're sort of getting into the strong period. You're looking and you're going, with everyone fit, is there a genuine question over who's Ange's best 11? Because there's so much competing in every area of the pitch now. Another player that came back was David Turnbull. I thought he did okay. But do you think David Turnbull's one of these players who might struggle for some game time going forward?
Well, I think it's a subject we'll probably end up talking about tonight, because there was some stuff that came up in the AGM over transfers and rotating, or rather kind of regenerating the squad every so often.
We could talk about it now if you want. But
as it pertains to David Turnbull, Ange has said, if anybody's not aware, that he to be successful, Celtic need a lot more activity in the transfer market. And it's kind of music to our ears in a certain way, but it also kind of prepared us for the fact that that means players will have to go as well. People want to get behind their heroes. They want to have players for a long time, but it doesn't work these days. You need to move players on. So I can see a point where David Turnbull potentially becomes surplus to requirements eventually at Celtic. Not because I don't think he's a good player. I really do. I think he was kind of instrumental in winning the league last year, which was massive. But there comes a time where we're going to have to refresh this squad again and improve on it. And I think David Turnbull might be a victim of that.
But that's a good thing for Celtic, and I think that's why I kind of agree with what Ange said, because I know it's sort of there was a lot of disquiet caused by Ange's comments, and people were sort of, no, you can't. We're going to do that mean just we're going to sell all our best players, and you think to yourself, this is obviously it's a two-sided agreement. The agreement is Ange is happy to relinquish his best players and sell them on, merely move them out in the transfer market and see Celtic be more active with new, better players coming in and new investment coming in. Celtic have kind of got one part of that right, kind of, in the past. They've not always backed up the other part, although you could say now, this season, the recruitment's been really, really strong. But you think, well, some of these players, if they're going to go, if that's the price we have to pay to move this club on, and we've got a manager who's willing to do that, and a manager that's saying, look, trust me with it, some of the big names might go. Your Matt O'Reillys might go. David Turnbull, for me, is, if this new, more aggressive transfer strategy is what Ange wants to see, no brainer for me that David Turnbull will probably end up out, because he should end up out, because he's not improving the squad, and we've improved him and he should move on. It's other players I think Ange was maybe alluding to. On one side of the spectrum, I think he was alluding to the fact that we hold on to players too long. James Forrest, no offence to James Forrest, he's done all right for us recently, but Ange is probably looking at a guy like Forrest going, he's good to have about, he's a strong player, but given the choice, I would have moved him on a couple of years ago.
We gave him a new contract last season.
Well, I don't know if that was entirely Ange's doing. I think he likes having James Forrest about, but I think if Ange is going to be more aggressive in the transfer market, wind the clock back when James Forrest has some transfer value, is what I'm saying. He probably wouldn't have moved them on. Matt O'Reilly, there's talk of him.
It's going to be inevitable, isn't it? Yeah,
there's talk of Juranovic. I've heard rumours that Juranovic is looking for a new club again in January. So these things coming up, we just maybe have to accept it now.
Yeah, Celtic are in a sort of decent position because we have got players who we do think will go, like O'Reilly, probably Juranovic, possibly, but Jota, of course, and maybe Carter Vickers. But we've also got guys like Kyogo, Giacomakis, who are older than we maybe think, and Starfelt as well, guys like that. So we've got players, even guys like Hatate, 25. We could. Is there going to be Premier League teams that take a chance on him in the next 2 years? I'm not so sure. So, despite how good we think he is, but guys like O'Reilly and that, I think that's inevitable. They'll go. Celtic have got a nucleus of a squad, but with David Turnbull, I kind of disagree with you. I think guys like that, like, what's the cost of keeping David Turnbull? Because he's Scottish, which we need for the Champions League. He is a good squad player. He played a lot when he was available, and if I'm looking at the midfield options, our best three are McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly. Who's next after that? I'd probably say Turnbull.
I think the point is, though, you sell Turnbull and you bring somebody else in that's better than Turnbull. But what you're saying is right. He's Scottish.
Yeah,
so that's about it.
My point after that is Aaron Moy's not going to be here long term. McCarthy's not here long. Well, he is here long term, but he's not playing. Edeguchi's not playing. So Abelgard's barely featured. So our options in that position are Hatate, O'Reilly, McGregor and Turnbull. Why not keep the guy? We don't need to have every single player or you're a starter. We can have guys like Welsh, like Turnbull, that stay here for a long time and contribute to the team. He's out of contract in 18 months, so if we are going to tie him down, we should be doing it soon, or if we are going to move him on. But we're running the risk of, I get we have to improve, but while we're going to lose other players, I don't think Turnbull's one of the ones we should be looking to actively move on.
Top Celtic podcaster disagrees with manager. Do you hear that, Stephen? That's exactly what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, my position on Turnbull was never from a point of view that he's not good enough to play for Celtic, because he has shown in the past that he is, and in flashes he has done a really good job. I wonder that if we are take the pitch to Turnbull and tell him that right, you're homegrown, we basically need to keep you because, we basically need a certain amount of a quota of Scottish players, so we kind of need to keep you, but we're going to improve the positions round about you and you'll still be in the same position this time, 3 years' time, if we get you to sign a new contract. I just don't know if that's good enough for a guy like that. To be in a position like that, and
he plays.
He plays when other better players aren't fit. So I suppose the barometer would be David Turnbull's kind of like the barometer for the squad a wee bit. He's a good player or good enough not to start, as you say. He doesn't start every week. Other players get picked ahead of him. So if he stays, right, if there ever comes a point where he's a starter, does that not say that the overall level of the midfield is dropped and David Turnbull's managed to find himself a starter again?
That's what
Celtic,
my point.
Celtic are famous for, isn't it? That's how your hero Charlie McGurry ended up playing in midfield because we sold Ledley, we sold Wanyama.
No. Listen. Right, okay. We don't normally have disagreements on this podcast, right? But Charlie McGrew played in midfield because he was so talented that he could basically turn his hand to anything. And I won't hear a single bad word said about Charlie McGrew. I don't know if that's in shot.
Yeah, he's the shrine to Charlie McGrew. Just about, it could be anyone. That's literally just a guy with dark hair that's just above Melly's left shoulder.
Charlie, right? So I honestly don't mention his name again. See what happens, Stephen.
So to put a button on it, Turnbull's pish. We need much better than Turnbull. So
half the player Charlie McGrew is. Half the player.
Get him out of here. Get him out, Sharon.
Charlie McGrew. The Champions League is over. To turn their attention to more
again,
pressing
is the Champions
matters.
League over again?
The Champions League died so many times. I felt for the Celtic players against Real Madrid. I really did feel for them. It wasn't the way we wanted that game to pan out. But I mean, you can just clip what we've said about these other Champions League games. You can copy and paste. We didn't look out of place. We played some good stuff. Yada yada yada. Missed our chances, etc., etc. Got no points. It was a harsh lesson, wasn't it? The Champions League.
I'm kind of glad it's over now, to be honest, because as much as I can appreciate the positives that it brings to the players, the basically invaluable experience they can take from playing at that level against that level of player, especially Real Madrid. The invaluable lessons that the coaches can take from it, that the manager can develop on the players. They're never going to play at a higher level than that. So, if they can't take in from that, they're in the wrong job, quite frankly. But I'm a fan. I'm not taking any of that from it. I'm not taking any lessons or any experience. I'm not developing anything. I'm just sitting watching the team.
I thought you were saying you're a fan of that.
No,
you're a fan of Celtic.
I'm getting nothing from it. I'm just sitting there watching the team getting humped away from home when we're already out. So I'm just kind of glad that we don't have to deal with it anymore now. I'm not one of these guys that said, check the record, bud. I've never, ever been one for saying that Europe is a distraction or anything like that. I don't believe that for a single second. But there comes a time when you are just playing games that mean nothing and getting gubbed in them. And it's a shame.
In one.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just that game I couldn't really be bothered with. It's a shame because it was the thing that we'd looked forward to. It was 40 years since we've played against Real Madrid. It was the one team everyone wanted. And by the time we played them in their famous stadium,
Don't want to play them for 40 years.
It was all over and it was basically a kind of dead rubber. So it's a shame how it worked out like that. But I am kind of glad that we've kind of got it behind us now and we can focus, as you said very recently, just get a firm grasp on domestic duties and kind of move on. Again,
was it everything you hoped for? Was the Champions League everything you hoped for when the draw came out? When we were at the beginning, we had our wee confab on the podcast. We're saying this is our hopes for the Champions League. This is what we want to see. We did think, at a time we can probably get through this group. I think that's naivety on our part. Because we are Celtic experts. And Celtic lovers, but we're not European football experts, so we didn't know how good Shakhtar were. We didn't know how good Leipzig were, and we thought, beating Real Madrid would have been a Hail Mary. How do you feel from the start to now?
It's really hard to actually locate that in my brain, really, how I felt, because I think what my reaction was at the time of the draw was, it's winnable. Well, not winnable, not the group was winnable, but it's doable. I think we could possibly get through that. I think that was my main feeling about it. As the games slowly ticked away, that became apparent that it wasn't going to happen for us for various reasons. So was it everything I'd hoped it'd be? No, because what we do is, as fans, we just look at the group, we see the names, and go like, yes, we're in the Champions League, and then the games are very different. So I think so. I don't know. I don't know if it's quite what it was cracked up to be when it was first announced, but it was an enjoyable experience. I think we learned a lot from it as fans as well. As much as I've just said, I'm not taking anything away from being gubbed in the Bernabeu. I think we learned a lot about where the Celtic team are and where they need to be to get to progress in this. But overall, it wasn't much fun watching them miss chance after chance and letting valuable points slip through the fingers.
I think that's the key. I think for me, it's a taster of where the club need to be all the time going forward. It's like getting a free upgrade to business class on a flight. You're like, this is fucking class, actually. But you know everyone around you probably flies there all the time. So you're sitting there thinking, well, this is the place to be. You know, it's not just good enough getting the free upgrade. You want to come every time you go on holiday, you want to go in business class. Unfortunately, we can't do it. But that's kind of what I feel for Celtic. I'm like, right, okay, so you got the Champions League experience, you got the Real Madrid, the Bernabeu, the Champions League nights at Celtic Park. Don't make it a one-off. Don't make it a one-off. For this tournament, what was missing for me was that scalp, that one result, that one win. Even just, I know one win, not just in terms of points on the board. I would have been a lot happier to get one win and still not qualify. Just take a scalp somewhere. The two Shakhtar games, probably should have won them. We were just a fraction not good enough in those games to beat the Shakhtar team. They obviously had Mudryk, who's going to be a superstar, and that's maybe what the difference was in the two teams. But overall, how do you feel?
I think there is progress. I think if we were sitting here going, we didn't win a game and we didn't look like winning a game, like the worst Champions League team in history, who we also forgot to mention that wee bit. So you could be sitting there like, where do we go from here? But Celtic, we'll take our chances next time and we'll do a lot better. We created the chances. I think what we did sort of agree on is, look, this group's going to be hard, but we can maybe qualify, but we need to see that we can compete. I think we did compete in the 4 games, even the first Real Madrid game. That one was just one of those ones. Got off to a good start, we didn't, and then it just went downhill for there. But this has to be the start of something rather than a one-off, because looking into the Champions League now, the groups are all finished. The 8 teams that were fourth pot, there was only 7 wins for those games, 7 wins for them. So that's 48 games, only 7 wins. 3 of those were Club Brugge and 2 of them were Marseille. So only 4 out of the 8 actually won a game. 7 out of the 8 finished bottom of their group. Only one went through. So you can see how difficult it is being in that fourth pot. You're up against it from the very start, and we all look like, maybe we can take something off Shakhtar, maybe we can take something off Leipzig. And these teams are all good with 50, 60 million pound rated players in them that can change a game like that. So look, Celtic have learned a lot from it, I presume. It needs to be the desire to stay at that level, keep competing at that level from the club, but also there has to be a desire from the players and management to compete at that level as well. So the players have to go away and think about what they learned in there and take it on. You need to be more clinical, you need to be more ruthless, you need to be crisper with your passing, you need to concentrate more. You can't let guys run off you. All these simple things that they have to take into their game now, and the club need to go away and go, right, we know the level now, we maybe know 1 or 2 positions we need to fix here and go from there, because this is where you want to be. The only team that qualified, as I said, was Club Brugge, and they've been in the Champions League for 5 years in a row. That's what we've done. We spoke about it last week and the week before. That's the level we have to get to. But I think as well, we had a bit of bad luck having McGregor, Carter Vickers, Jota all out for more than one game a lot of the time. That's 3 of Celtic's 4 best players for me, and to have them out of the team, it's going to be so difficult. We need everything to go away to get a win in the Champions League. That didn't happen for us.
When I'm watching this Champions League stuff, Stephen, I'm sort of picturing a couple of years forward, Matt O'Reilly or Juranovic or Carter Vickers doing one of these interviews where they ask them, who's your toughest opponent? And I feel like it's all going to be guys from this Champions League campaign. Matt O'Reilly's going to go, oh God, I played up against Modric. Valverde. He was unbelievable. Tony Cruz, I played against him. He was ridiculous. Mudryk terrorising Juranovic. You know, I just feel like these are the conversations these guys are going to be having later in their career.
Yeah, and it's a good learning curve and all that. That's it. And as I say, that my experience with the game was very different because I'm a fan and I'm not learning all these things. But eventually, when I say I'm glad it's over, I saw the penalty within the first 5 minutes, I think it was, and I was just like, this is going to be some night. This is going to be a long ass night. So that, I mean, if we carry on the business class analogy, I feel like we did all right. We got through it, but we're kind of walking off the plane with our pockets bulging with complimentary cashews and embarrassing ourselves, like trying to pay for drinks. No, it's free. Oh, I'm mortified. It's like, so we'll know next time. We'll know how to work the buttons on the screen and all that. So we'll be a lot more comfortable next time. But the Real Madrid was one game too many for me. But that's not to say I didn't enjoy it the whole way along. I really enjoyed being at the Real Madrid home game. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah. Obviously lost, but I thought I really enjoyed that atmosphere in first half performance anyway.
Yeah, I think the thing that maybe got me a bit was the comments after the game. Steve McManaman and Stuart Armstrong were in the studio. Stuart Armstrong was actually pretty good, so I think he could have a career in there. But Steve McManaman sort of gave a look, I've enjoyed watching Celtic play. They've just not taken their chances, but I can see progress, and it is a learning curve for them. And that's a guy with nothing in it for Celtic. He's just a guy, a complete neutral, watching Celtic going, do you know what? They try and play the game the right way. They'll learn from this and go on. I thought, you know what? See if he can see it, then maybe we are right in what we're saying. Like, there is progress here, because he doesn't have to go on and say that. Yeah. He's there as a neutral, as I said. And Stuart Armstrong was he's like, look, it's a hard level he's played at it. Steve McManaman's won it a couple of times. They know what it takes to play there. So look, we can take the positives from it and move on. And it's just a pity we couldn't get that victory that might have allowed us like a couple of ties in the Europa League after Christmas, because I always like having European football after Christmas.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. If I was to say right here today, I'll give you the Champions League again next season or progression in the Europa League, what are you taking?
Me personally, the Europa League.
Are you?
Aye, because I'd prefer a run at something rather than just be
visitors. Yeah, you don't want the free upgrade. You want to fly premium economy on the regular. Is that what you want?
Yeah, basically. It's again.
That's kind of how it works, isn't it? Because there's conference economy, then there's premium economy, then there's business class. There you go. There you go.
I think we've absolutely nailed, and in no way stretched this analogy past breaking point.
No.
It's just a personal choice. I appreciate that there is more to be taken from playing against these players at a higher level again, I've already said it, but from a playing and coaching point of view and all that. But from a fan's perspective, I'd rather see us just do something in Europe.
Even those against worse teams,
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with that, though. I'm not particularly insecure about the fact that Celtic aren't at that level. I know a lot of people, and this is a kind of side issue as well. But Melly, you listed all the injuries we've had to deal with in this Champions League run as well, and I think that the older I get and the more into this team that Ange's kind of revolution I become, I'm just less tolerant of the conventional football wisdom that we're meant to just put up with. Like pundits, it's dead easy to just go out in there and say, okay, we're missing basically the 4 best players in the team, but you need to do better.
You criticising your pod mate here?
No, I'm criticising the people. Melly brought the injuries to mind. I'm saying that the people who just sit there and say, Celtic need to do better there. They need 2 points, absolutely pathetic. Meanwhile, we're missing Carter Vickers, who is the designated adult of the defence, who basically holds it all together. Your captain, your most creative player. To say that you just need to go out there and do better, don't get gubbed off Real Madrid under those circumstances.
Tell us how to do better, don't just say do better.
It's ridiculous, and it's just one of those football speak things that people do. Just say, you need to do better there, you need to do better than 2 points. Well, do you?
I want the Champions League again. I've had a taste for it, and I can see I was having another crack at it and maybe doing a bit better and maybe getting that scalp. I look at it and go, Neil Lennon didn't get into the Champions League. Brendan Rodgers had 2 cracks at it and got 1 win. We've had 2 wins in 10 years, I think, in the Champions League. So look, it's getting difficult. It's not built for Celtic anymore, but the only way Celtic are going to build a team for this is to be in it, bank the money, get better players, get better infrastructure. And I love the glamour ties. It's all about that for me. And I think with this team, these players, I think the only way you can progress is to have Champions League, that Champions League carrot dangling. Look at this. Matt O'Reilly played in the Champions League for us. He's away down to England for X amount. It's how we should sell players. A team that got through during the week was Benfica. And the only way they've done that is because they've made the most money from player trading over the last 10 years or so. This is what Celtic need to do and aspire to. And I think we're at the point where we've got players good enough, more than good enough for Celtic. They're just no good enough for the Champions League.
Yes.
And the only way we are going to do that is by getting to play in the Champions League and become Champions League players, because we're not going to buy them. So
I'll do what Ange's presumably insinuating.
Get rid of Turnbull.
Get rid of Turnbull, aye. Sell them on and bring in better ones. No, I do agree. I think there's a case as well that a lot of the players are if we could just magic up slight improvements in some of these players, we would have done a lot better. Obviously, that's a lot easier said than done.
And Stephen, we'll have the best of both worlds, right? We'll go into the Champions League, finish third, and go into Europa League.
Of course, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I forgot about that wee safety net, that
Well,
wee parachute.
there is that
Because
option.
if you finish third, you get a bye, don't you, into the Europa League? So that would be being better run, wouldn't it?
So we're out of business class with a parachute on, trying to land into a different plane, a different inferior plane.
Basically, and one thing I would say about the Europa League is success in the Europa League, reaching the end of that tournament, not necessarily winning it, but reaching the final of the Europa League doesn't really guarantee it's going to give you the tools to perform in the Champions League, does it? I mean, you could say, for talking sake, we made the final of that Europa League, right? You could get yourself into the Champions League next year and just get relentlessly fucking pumped
Ceaselessly.
Where even you've got us watching it begging for mercy. Stop, please. Liverpool, Napoli, no, come on. Just shit got unseemly, got ugly. We had to stop watching it.
Think of the coefficient, guys.
He's got a higher coefficient than us.
That's right.
Unbelievable. In the country, unbelievable. Anyway, couple of games left before the World Cup. Who is it, Melly?
Motherwell away during the week, then Ross County at home at the weekend, then the old off to Oz.
Oh, then we're off to Oz to play. Is Frank Lampard still the Everton manager?
Aye.
Just
Yeah,
that's
remarkably.
That's
no,
unbelievable.
Never saw that coming. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So it's Celtic v Frank Lampard's Everton in Europe. Obviously, we've got another flagship before then. We'll all talk about that. But most of all, we just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to 20 Minute Tim's, the Celtic Fans Podcast.